Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unspoken Truth podcast, where the mission is to hear the story, to have the margarita conversation instead of the Diet Coke one, and to share the amazingness and superpower of every woman that comes on the podcast. My name is Paige Brown, certified leadership and shadow work coach, nationally certified counselor with over 16 years of experience in shadow work and self-sabotage. And today I'm joined by Christine Passo, who is a 4-time certified life coach who spent years untangling the pain of living a life that didn't align with who she truly was. While those around her accepted the idea of sticking to the path despite feeling unseen, she believed there was a life of peace and purpose waiting for her. She chose to transform everything about herself and created a deep and meaningful life for herself. And I'm just so excited to meet you, because when I saw that you were 4-time certified, I was like, okay, this woman, we can have a long conversation about all of this. And the fact that you were really speaking about sticking to the path instead of going your own way, right? Like, and I think that that's such a huge thing for a lot of people. I've actually talked about it in the equations of like drifter versus driven, right? Like we have these drifters that sort of sit there and like they just stick to the path, they stick to the rhythm, they do the thing, even when it's causing them pain, or even when they feel like they're not being seen. And then you have the people over here that are the driven ones that are like, I'm going to stir the pot and go this way because this is where I feel better, right?
Right.
So tell me more about that. Like, tell me about this, this sticking to the path and the reasons why you just kind of decided to like just go for it, like all the things.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. You and I do somewhat similar work. Of course, every coach is totally different. So, just to kind of match up where people are like, oh, but aren't you in competition with all the coaches? I said, no, everybody's so completely different. We're all attracting a different person. So I love what you do. And I love that you're providing this platform for people to tell their stories, because it's freaking awesome. So thanks for that.
Anytime.
And I mean, honestly, like, just to get into it, it's like there was always that part of me, even when I was young, there was like something just feels off, right? It's like here I am doing what everybody's suggesting that I do, following the rules. And not that I don't mind following the rules, but I always kind of got in trouble when I questioned them. And I wasn't questioning them to be a jerk or to be a problem child. I was questioning because I was really curious about it. And that never went away from me. But yet I spent 20 plus years in a career that was never meant for me. I just kind of fell into it because in my generation, I'm 54 years old. And in my generation, we were all taught, listen, you just need to have a job where you can pay your mortgage. You have a nice house that you want. You take 2 to 3 trips a year. You buy the clothes that you want and you save for retirement. Nowhere in there was, it would be great if you could find something that you really enjoyed. That was a way afterthought, And so here I am in this career in marketing and advertising, sales essentially, right? And I'm like, God, I hate kind of trying to influence people to do what they don't want to do, especially when I know it's not a fit. And that's sales. But I was always the one that was like, you know what? I don't really think it's the right time for us to work together. Why don't you come back to me in 6 months or whatever it was? Because I just didn't have the heart to sell to them. Anyway, so 20 years of essentially being like, if this is my life, it kind of sucks. Like, even though here I am taking great trips, right? Like writing my life dream away and taking the trips that I want. But what is that? 3 weeks out of the year? 3 freaking weeks? And I spend the rest of the time being like, I can't wait for that next vacation. And I'm here to tell you, there are so many people out there living their life that way. Mm-hmm. And they've convinced themselves that it's okay. Because it's like, well, life can't be great all the time. So I don't have to love my job. I just have to know that I'm making enough money. Yeah. And then thank goodness I have vacations. So like, we've convinced ourselves that that's an acceptable way to live when it's not. And so there was that me that I've been since I was a kid. Like, why are we doing this if we're really unfulfilled? Like, if I am questioning my purpose, if I'm questioning exactly what are people even saying about me? Are they saying, oh, Christina's a great salesperson? Like, can you use bad language here?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was like, fuck that. I mean, seriously, I'm going to take it all the way up to the top with that word because it's so true. We just spend so much of our time in that way of thinking this is just how we have to live. And I was like, I can't do it. And I'll tell you, Paige, when I decided to make a change, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I had to get out of what I was doing, and
Yeah.
I had to listen to myself. And that's how it started.
Yeah, I really feel you in this because I was a counselor before I became, a coach. And
Mhm.
I know that they overlap in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways they don't because I mean, I was very much in a box, when I was a counselor. And um I started off working in more like the foster care systems, working with kids, doing stuff like that, and in the community. And then I ended up working in schools because I like kids. I was like, I want to work with the kids. Well, the school systems are just toxic. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, they underpay you. They don't actually you do resources. I had to still work outside of the school to actually make any money. And I didn't even have it where it was like, oh, I'm having all of these vacations because I wasn't making any money. Yes, I
Right.
had all the summer off, and everybody's like, well, you get summer off. I'm like, but I can't do anything because I'm not making any money. Like
Right.
literally, like I was like, what am I supposed to do? I actually ended up dipping my toe into the entrepreneurial world when I was pregnant because my husband and I were both in the school system, and we realized we're broke as a joke. We don't
Mm.
we don't know what to do, and we have a baby and we have a house to pay for and all this other stuff. And we actually both opened up a travel agency together, and it worked really well. Like we actually sold a lot of trips, and we were actually able to. That was the way that we were able to travel, was
Mm.
because we sold trips. And we ended up leaving that when 2020 hit because that was obviously nobody was traveling.
Right.
But luckily I had started my coaching business at that point because I was like, I dipped my toe and then I was like, okay, let's just keep seeing what else is going on. But I didn't leave the schools until 2021 because when I officially started my coaching business was 2019, and then
Mhm.
I did double dipped until 2021. And but I only stayed because of COVID, like because it was like I was working from home, so it was a lot easier for me to like do both jobs, make some money, stockpile it. And my husband had already left, so like I was the person carrying the insurance. So I was like, let's just see where this goes for like a little bit.
Yeah.
But when I pulled the plug, it was like relief city. Like when I actually gave my letter of resignation, I was like, yes. And I swear I knew I wanted to do coaching, but I really didn't understand the depth of that until like I really got into it. Like who you actually want to work with, what is the specialty you really want to have, and like really being able to get specific, because when I was in the counseling field, there was no specificity. It was just like you take whoever walks in the door, and
Right.
that's your specific need for that moment. Like, there's no other. So it was just very freeing, very overwhelming. But I feel like with people that are like scared to do it, like scared to pull the plug, because I work with a lot of women who are in the entrepreneur space though, that are still like that though, because they
Mhm.
created this world that they should be happy in, theoretically, because they followed the method, right? Like they followed the thing, they did the thing,
Mhm.
and it worked. But it's like they, instead of like what you said at the beginning, doing something that made them happy, they did the thing that made it work. And now they're
Right.
like, now what do I do?
Mhm.
And they're freaking out.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, because I understand it. I've been there, and it's terrifying when you get into that space. You don't want to pull the ripcord, really.
Mm-mm.
But I mean, I'm glad you did, because then obviously you're in a lot happier position to do that. So what do you, I know, like you said, we're not in competition. We do sort
No.
of similar things, but everybody delivers it differently. It's like, somebody that talks to me on the phone and you on the phone is going to click with one of us differently, because that's
Mhm.
just the way it's people, right? It's personality. It's the way you
Right.
deliver the message, and it's the way you show up. So like what do you feel called to like coach? Like what is your thing that you really just like love to do?
Honestly, what I love to do is exactly what I went through myself. So not only am I certified in those specifications, but I can really connect with my clients by knowing exactly how they're feeling. And the few words are that you feel lost. You just feel like you don't know who you are anymore. You think you know your values, but you don't, because you say yes to things, and then about 5 minutes later, you're like, why did I just say yes to that? I don't want to do it. That's you being out of alignment with yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so many people are like that. But again, they don't question themselves because everybody else says, well, that's what I'm like too. It's like this regular status quo way of living. But the women that work with me, they just feel lost. They feel like there's something more. They want something more. They feel like their purpose is not being fulfilled. Like they have something greater that they want to be doing, but they're lost. They don't know what to do. They feel unseen and unheard. So they've tried to speak up before, but they've been shushed, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they have people at work, they have friends, or they have family that have made them feel small, maybe have tried to control them. And so that, again, will make you feel lost because you're at battle with who everybody wants you to be versus who you really are. And it's really scary to be who you really are because then you risk potentially losing those relationships in your life because most of those people that are trying to tell you what to do, they're not going to stick around because they're not going to be able to control you anymore. So the word lost is so much bigger than it really sounds. That's why I'm giving a few of these examples. But feeling unseen and unheard, unworthy. Like I spent so much of my life feeling like the words that came out of my mouth did not matter. Like maybe they would matter if I was having a party. Hey, do you want to come to the party? Sure, teen, that sounds awesome. Okay, my words mattered. But I was shut down so many times and told I didn't know what I was talking about. And that, again, is coming from an environment that is very controlling. And you get lost because you don't know who you're supposed to be. So those are the women that I work with. You know, they're exhausted with performing in who everybody else wants them to be. They're people pleasers, right? They're saying yes. They're performing all the time. And they are utterly exhausted with trying to be who everybody else wants them to be.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely have similar audiences for that, for sure. Because that's literally who I work with, a lot of it. And that's because that's who I was too. So this is like awesome. Like I love, we've had so much growth, Christine. Like look at how far we've come. But yeah, being a people pleaser, you know, and a lot of my women, I would say yes, that lost feeling is there. I think too, like, because I primarily focus with entrepreneurs, they don't want to admit that because they've made choices. And it's almost like that, like, I would say for them, it's like that, the fear of failure or feeling of admitting that they messed up or something. And there's a lot of that in there as well. And that's why, like, when I work with them, I'm like, this is not about failing. Like, you didn't fail because you don't know what you don't know. I say that all the time. But you don't know what you don't know. But, like, it's about, like, we're shifting, right? So, like, that's why this is make the shift back here.
Yeah.
But, like, we're shifting because if you pivot or you change or you move, it sounds so much more intimidating or scary, right? But it's like if you just shift a little bit, and it's about for me, it's about, like, when I work with them, coming back to themselves, right? Coming back home, because what happened when you were a people pleaser, when you are a yes man or a yes woman or whatever it is, you're giving your power away to somebody else and they have control, which is why I was literally just reading this again, or this morning was Mel Robbins, right? Like I love Mel Robbins. Like the whole let them theory makes like so much sense. It's why people are following it, is because it's like, yeah, let them walk away, like release the control that they have over you. But that is so nervous system jarring to the person who literally has clung to that their entire life. And so one of my friends, the reason why I actually started reading Mel Robbins was because I didn't know that. She told me, she's like, I didn't read it. Like, I just knew the let them theory. I was like, oh, that's a great theory. I absolutely love that. Let's like rock this, whatever. And I hadn't read it. And she said, do you know you're like the second part? And I was like, what are you talking about? So then I ended up having to read it because I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, you're like the second part because you're like, she's like the release of the control of other people, but then you're like the coming home to yourself. Because the problem is, like, that's exactly what I experienced. And I don't know if you did the same thing, but like when I finally said, like, no, I'm not going to be showing up in that way anymore, it was the most unnerving experience that I ever had in my life. I felt like I was free falling and there was no net because I didn't know what else to do. And it was just like, but I'm that person that shows up. I'm the person that says yes to everything else. If I'm not that person, then what am I going to be in these people's lives? And it didn't even click to me that meant that they would not be there because that was that right? Because that's the programming that I had. And so I feel like when you can really get back into who you are and who you want to be and who you like, trusting yourself and loving yourself, that is like that coming home that I want to give them, because it's that I understand that free fall feeling of like, you can't do everything for everybody. You need to take a step back because you can't control this. And when you release that, it's like, Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so scary. So I don't know if that was something that you related to when you were kind of moving through it or not, but I was like, that was like that jarring emotion that I had when that
You,
happened.
I love that you said that, because as you said scary, I was going to say out loud freedom. So
Oh yeah.
I love that we have those different perspectives though. So like for me, it was a choice I knew I needed to make. It was like a
Hmm.
series of events. It wasn't that bam, I just did it. There were a series of events that made me realize that I wasn't living my own life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely was not. And so when I made the choice to do it, I was like, oh my God, I feel so much lighter. Like I finally feel like I'm wearing my own shoes and I'm looking through my own eyeballs. And it was after, it was, the months that come after where people are, the naysayers come out, right? And they're like, oh, you're
Hmm.
not going to be able to do that. And I was like, damn, these people are still showing up in that way, even though I'm showing up in my new way. They're not seeing it because they
Yeah.
never will, because they're only, which most people do, they only see through their small lens, whatever it is
Hmm.
that they might have, because we can't help it. We automatically judge people. It is a
Yeah.
knee jerk reaction. We do it. Even the best coaches in the world do it. But what we do is we stop ourselves immediately and we're like, I'm judging right now. And that's
Hmm.
inappropriate. So, like, nobody ever gets rid of judging. We just know better. We learn to figure it out. But yeah, every time, and when I write my content and I'm talking to my clients, I'm like, yes, it's difficult. I said, but there is an unbelievable freedom,
Hmm.
because you then now you get to name what your values are. Now you get to name and own what it is that you really want, where before you didn't. And I'm sure you experience this,
Yeah.
Paige, but like you'll ask your client, who are you? What do you like? What are you interested in? What are your values? And most of them will say, oh, I'm a mom. I'm an accountant, and I really love going to my kids', athletic games. And I also enjoy going to yoga when I can get there. And it's like, that's not who you are,
No.
and they don't even really quite understand why they go to yoga, other than, well, I do it because I need to de-stress, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, it's just like in your ears, but they're not connecting to what that experience is really about. And so that's where that freedom comes in.
Yeah, no, and I love that you said that, because I do believe that now for sure. And I think that, like, for me, when it was that initial release, I was like, I felt like it's I think when I work with people, it's always this back and forth, right? Because there's this tug to go back to who you were because it's comfortable, and that's like where we find peace. But then there's this tug of like, but this feels really good over here. And it's like your, that subconscious brain trying to, push you back into what you already knew. And it's that pattern. And so the first initial feeling that I had when I was like, I'm not going to do the people pleasing anymore, it was more of that relief. But then it was like this, like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, I tried to identify it, right? And so then I go back and I always think about that, because I know that the people I'm working with always have this like fluctuating motion too, because like they feel like, oh, but I'm free of this. And then when they have that wave come through them, it's almost like they feel like they took 15 steps backwards. And I'm like, you're
Yes.
not though. You didn't. You're still moving forward. And I think that's where the fear sometimes I think kicks in, because they're like, am I doing the right thing? Why didn't I just go back to where I was? Because it served the purpose at the time. And it's like, but did it really serve the purpose? Because what are you feeling now that you couldn't feel then? Or what are you experiencing now that you didn't experience then? And I agree with you 100%. Like, freedom is definitely the word that I would categorize my life now, because I definitely can be like, no, I don't want that, right? And it's like, this is not going to happen. And releasing that also on an inanimate thing, which was trying to say yes to everything when I was starting a business, right? Because it's like you start the business and you're like, oh, yes, I'll do that podcast. I'll do this thing. I'll do that thing. And then all of a sudden you realize you're like, I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. Like, I'm not even like doing a pattern. Like, and I actually caught myself yesterday because I was supposed to do a presentation for somebody in real estate. And I was like, why did I say yes to this? Because like, it's a friend of mine. I like the guy. He's really nice. But I was like, this is not aligned with anything that I'm doing right now. Why did I say yes to this? So I actually called him. I said, listen, don't hate me, but I'm not doing it. Like, I was like, don't hate me. But I said, like, I was like, well, you can hate me if you want. I mean, that's fine, because I'm bailing on you. But like, I was like, this just doesn't align with what I'm doing. I gave him enough notice that like, at least like he could have, sub somebody in if you wanted to, but I was just like, this doesn't align with where my business is going. And this doesn't feel good. And I was so freaking proud of myself when I said that, because, and I've done it before, but I was like so proud that I caught it. And I didn't just like go like, oh, well, I told him I would do it. Right. Like I told him I'd do it.
I have to commit. I need to stick with it. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that doesn't feel good. Like, I don't, and I don't know how deep in the, the woo database you go, but like, cause I like some woo, but I do like the, I've been studying a little bit more of human design work, and I've been researching, I'm a generator. And I'm very common, apparently. I am unique.
I'm a generator
in my own right.
too. Yeah, I'm a generator too.
I'm like, I'm unique in my own right. Anyway, but it's very much like, you want to put the stuff that feels good in your body like forward, right? You want to do that because that's when you're actually going to line up and have the most peace in your life, and that's what it says. And I was like thinking about that, and I was actually brushing up on some stuff for a client of mine who he's a projector. I have one guy that I still work with. He's never leaving, I feel. But he's and I love working with him, but he's a projector. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're honestly more rare than, most people. So we were like, I was researching some stuff because I mostly get generators, manifestors, or manifesting generators, like, cause this is the most common. So I'm like reading through the book. Cause I'm like, I need to I don't think I've had a projector. Like, I don't know this. So I went in through that and I was reading through it. And then that's honestly when it dinged on me. Like, I'm reading through his stuff and I'm like, am I serving myself right now by trying to do this presentation? And that's when I was like, no, I'm not. Because it's really, for me, it's like, again, it's about coming back here. If you are not in your body, you don't necessarily know. If you're just relying on that brain space to like dictate your life, you're not in an alignment. Your brain, it matters, obviously. It's like the supercomputer of your body, but it doesn't dictate everything for you. And it's usually the thing that's driving you the most crazy. Like, that's what I've learned.
I love that you talked about that. Not necessarily the whole human design thing. I mean, that's cool too, but I love that you talked about how you knew you weren't in alignment with the decision that you had made. And as an entrepreneur, like we face this, especially when we're new in our business. Everybody's like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to tap in this and you need to talk about that and you need to do this. And if you're going to do videos on LinkedIn and that kind of content on social media, then you need to be public speaking. So in the beginning, right? Like, Paige, I thought I wanted to be a public speaker. I was like, wow, this would be great. I love it. I love telling stories and where people can benefit. And the more that time went on, because the majority of my practice is one-on-one coaching. I love it. But then you have, so you're scrolling through Instagram, and Instagram, is going to target me because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm talking about my business. And it's like, the only way to make real money is to offer group coaching. The only way to make real money is to become a speaker. If you're not sharing your story, you're missing out. And I remember there was a period of time, it was like 6 months last year, that I was like, maybe I'm off base. Like, maybe I'm not doing something. And there's always somebody that's going to be in your ear, whether you're working for somebody else or whether you're working for yourself. There's always going to be somebody else trying to tell you what they think you should do. And it's like, get out of my space. I mean, really, it's almost like you kind of have to put on your bitch shoes and say, that's not what I want. Stop it. And, because it starts to become like really aggressive, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really does.
It just doesn't stop. But I say that because it's for people that don't own their own business as well. It's for somebody that maybe enjoys middle management, right? Like, they don't want to climb the ladder anymore. They like their career and what they're doing. They don't want to have to work later or whatever it might be, take trips. And that's fantastic. But maybe their parents are in their ear, or their siblings or their spouse or their friends or coworkers like, well, you should go for this position. You can make more money. You're so good at this. You're so good at this. Nobody accepts what we say, which is, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And
as a
that,
truth.
yeah. And that takes constant alignment, no matter who you are in this world, whether you're the top CEO of the most successful company in the world or not. You're always having to stay in check with what is in alignment with who you are.
I agree with that. 100%. And I think that that's like, you use the business example, but absolutely, like, that's for anybody, right? Because we get plagued with ads for everything, right? Like, it's like, you could do that for just even the basic purchase of stuff. Like, stop telling me what kind of pants I want to wear. Like, it's the same thing, right? It's like, stop trying to like influence me. And I agree with that. And that's honestly, like just going back to the business stuff for a second, that's why I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs who hit that burnout level, because it's not so much the people pleasing necessarily with people in their own life. It's literally that they hit that shiny object syndrome, because they're trying to, that it targets people pleasers, because you're like, oh, but I need to do this thing or that thing or thing and this thing, and to serve my audience. And it's the same thing, like you said, with like people in, middle management or whatever it is, if they don't want to climb the ladder anymore and they're happy with where they're at because they don't want to work any more hours, or they don't want to take away time from their family. And that does not mean that they are more or less successful than the other person. And that's the same thing with entrepreneurs. There's always this thing of like, oh, you have to hit that 7-figure goal or that 8-figure goal or whatever it freaking is. Well, what if you just want to make what you want to make and be fine with it? Like, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who we were both in a 7-figure mastermind. And it was like draining both of us. Like it was a very masculine centered thing. Both of us left. We were like, no, we're done. But she was saying the same thing. She's like, I don't want to freaking make $1 million. That's a lot of work to do that, to maintain that. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, can I just have my like $150,000 life and be fine with it? Like that's what she was saying. And I was just like, that's the thing. It's like all about what you want to put into it. And I think that again, it's about focusing on that alignment of like what feels good to you, and acknowledging that and listening to it, because you are not wrong just because you think differently than somebody that's standing next to you. You're not incorrect. It's like, and your definition of success is never going to align with the person next to you. No. Even if my friend and I had the same goal in mind of like, okay, $150,000 business, it still will look different because she's going to incorporate that differently than I will. Right. And it wasn't until I started leaning into the fact that I did want to actually do a podcast, which is like this thing that I absolutely am like super lit up about, because it's just like I get to talk to people all day, which is awesome. But at the same time, like I love in-person events. Like that is something that I absolutely love to do and be a speaker and stuff. But for a long time, I was like, no, I got to get X, Y, and Z done first before I even do any of this stuff. And I'm like, well, why do I have to do that? Like if it's not lighting me up, like there's no rules. The rules are made up, guys. Okay, the rules are made up. There is no like you have to do A, B, C, and D before you get to E. That doesn't exist, like, unless you're doing the actual alphabet, okay? Like, that doesn't actually exist. And it's like you just choose to do something in your life and you can do that thing. It might take some practice and it might take some trial and error, but you can still just do it. And that goes with anything. It goes with business. It goes with life. It goes with, like, changing your life patterns. You don't have to do anything in a specific order. And I absolutely love that about just releasing that pre-distinction of like the people pleasing. I think, and I keep coming back to that because I swear that's like a super common thing lately in society, but like, you release that people pleasing, which is self-sabotage, which is what I work in, but, and the imposter syndrome. I see those two like the most, like, the people pleasing goes with that imposter syndrome all the time. And for those of you that don't know what imposter syndrome is, because one of my friends said, it made me think that you were an undercover superhero. And I was like, that's not imposter syndrome.
That's not it.
I was like, it's basically like, you don't feel like you belong in the room, right? You don't bring anything to the table. You don't feel like and this could be at social gatherings. It could be at, like, if you're like the person standing in the back of the room at a party, it could be at the office Christmas party. It could be like you want to position your boss for a raise or a promotion and you don't feel like you have any value to add to that. Like, that's imposter syndrome. Because I guarantee you do have a value to add. If you've been working in a company for any amount of time, you have observations and input that is going to be different from somebody else, and you have something to add to that. Right. So it really does go boil down to that alignment piece, though.
Yeah. Something interesting happened. So I've teamed up, I've collaborated with a fitness studio owner, and every other Saturday morning we have an event called Strength in Motion, where we combine like restorative yoga movement, like healing movement, just to kind of wake up your body, 30 minutes of that. And then we break into 45 minutes of supportive conversation. So this is all for women, specifically for women. And this past Saturday, while we were going around the room and, sharing things that have been difficult for us lately, one of the women talked about how she knows that she can be better and she wants better. And I heard, and I have goosebumps right now, because what is better? When we say this to when we say this to ourselves, we're neglecting that right now everything is okay, right? Like, we don't have to be better, because then we're saying we're not enough at this moment. We're saying that yesterday we absolutely positively were not enough. And so, and that happens with work, just like what you're talking about with imposter syndrome. We're thinking we have to show up as somebody that we're not because it's the only way that we're going to look smarter, more intellectual, like more of the fit. And it's this better mentality that ruins us and takes away our opportunity to feel okay in exactly who we are. It doesn't mean we might not want to strive for different, right? Like I told her, I said, let's get rid of the word better and make it different, because that's really what you want. You just want different. And, I can almost see this like weight come off of her. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. And the words that we choose matter so much more than we give credit to. Like, we don't even think about it. Like, don't even get me going on the word should and could, because that, in my opinion, needs to come out of the dictionary. Women in particular, like, don't say it. We're self-sabotaging. We're punishing ourselves every time we say, oh, I should have said this. How about next time I will say this?
It's changing the verbiage. Yeah.
Yes. But the whole better and like getting ourselves to that point of, okay, well, I just want things to be different. Like right now in this moment, I'm really happy to be sitting with my puppy. It's like we miss those opportunities.
Well, and I think, I'm glad you brought this up, because I love that, because I had a conversation with somebody probably like a week ago, maybe. And it was about like, the better situation, or I wish I could be more or enough or whatever. And I was like, well, who measures that? Like, who's out there measuring this with a measuring stick, right? Like, who's putting like like you said, what is better? Like, what is that? What is determined success, right? Like, what does that mean? Because everybody's is different in that measuring stick. Like I said, like everybody's success looks different. And so it's like, why are we, showing up? It's like, when you're saying you want to be better, you say you want to be more or like enough for something else, you're really looking at this external situation, right? You're looking at the external, you're looking at like your partner, you're looking at your friend group or whatever, and something in there is not correct. If you're saying these things to yourself, there's two things happening. One is you have to look at what is being fed to you on a daily basis. This is stuff I challenge people to look at. What is being fed to you on a daily basis in the narrative, right? Because sometimes it is an unhealthy situation. And then the other thing is, what are you reciting to yourself on a daily basis, right? Because that is a pattern that we know, like with the subconscious mind and the brain, is something that defaults back to us to keep us safe, right? It's a safety imperative thing. It just goes back in there. Even though it can say horrible things to us, it's like, this is going to keep me safe. And so when you take these two things that combine it, that's when we like have that sense of lack or that sense of purpose or that sense of being. And it's like, you can't do that. Like, and I understand as somebody who did this I did this all the way up until, I'm going to say preaching to the choir right now, because I did this probably on a daily basis until I was 29 years old. And I'm 41 now. Yay. God, release that.
Thank God, right?
Release that. And I love the movement piece too, because it really does, I think, make people more aware of what they're feeling, because it is in your body and it is coming back. And I love, and the synchronicity of this conversation is just awe-inspiring to me, because I am actually partnering with one of my friends who is a fitness instructor, and we just did a retreat together where we did this. And it was just so magical, like seeing the movement with like the conversation and the intentional growth, and really getting into your bodies in two different ways, right? Like it was about the energetics in the body, but also the movement. And we're going to be doing more of them, so I'm super excited about it. But like it was just, it's so releasing. And I want to say kudos to that girl though for saying that, because I think it even when it's not accurate, right? Like I want to be better. I want to be saying it out loud and releasing that, going like, that's the thing I have to work on, or that's the thing that I need to bring awareness to, or the thing that I need to align with is I am, I'm perfect the way I am, changing that verbiage. And that retreat, the entire retreat was called Find Your Voice. We talked about words the entire time. And I was correcting people left, right, and center. I'm like, listen, we are not saying these words anymore. That's because right. It's like, I am, I am, and I can be empowered, and I am enough, and I am strong, and I am. And even when we don't necessarily believe it to the core of our beings yet, when you start to manifest that and you start to create that conversation in your mind, and in your body and and you start to really absorb it, like you really start to feel differently, because the more you put out the negative verbiage, the more you're getting back that's negative in your life. Yeah. It's just like we're mirrors of that. So the more that you put out positive, even when you don't quite see it yet, the more positivity that you're going to start getting back, and that's, I used to hate affirmations. And I've said this on a couple of podcasts. I'm like, I used to hate them. But I understand the purpose of them, even when you don't really fully get there yet, it's such a beautiful thing.
I'm with you though. Like I say the same thing about affirmations because I feel like it's irresponsible. So the women, I work with women specifically, and the women that are like, oh, but I just, I get a daily affirmation in my email every day, or, whatever the app is. And I said, well, how long does that last for you? And I'm going to be honest with you. You might be like, what? You're off my show. But I have a love-hate relationship with Mel Robbins because of that.
No, because I get it.
And again, status quo questioner here. I mean, this is what I do, is because you have the women, like I used to be, where maybe I would have listened to her, like, let them.
Yep.
But when you don't have the proper tools within yourself to allow yourself to really be strong enough to let them, it's going to turn to shit so fast. And it really bothers me and upsets me when, women who need more guidance, like they need either therapy or to work with a coach, they're following these things. And then when it doesn't work, they feel like they'll never get over it. They feel, which I don't use this word failure, but they feel like failures. And they're like, what's the point? Mel Robbins, everybody loves this from Mel Robbins. Everybody says how great she is. And yet I can't achieve it. And it really hurts my heart because of that. So I just, I really wanted to talk about that. But I wanted to steer back real quick about how important it is that when you are in the space to accept those affirmations, how incredibly powerful they will be. Like you.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, huge. So I have a podcast as well. In fact, I just wrapped season 1, and it was late summer last year. And I was like, I've been wanting to do this all my life. I've been wanting to do it, but I really need to sit down and just like create a mission, create a framework. Like, what do I want it to be like? What about a logo? Like, what do I want to call it? All the things. And immediately I was like, it's too much. Like, I don't know if I can do it right now. I was also in, towards the end or the middle of like deep grief in my life. And I was like, I don't think I can do it. And you know what I did, Paige? I closed my eyes. I was sitting at my desk. It was like late morning on a Tuesday. And in my mind, I said, I am capable. I said it 5 times. And within the next hour and a half, I had the whole thing planned out. Everything.
Yes.
That's where the affirmation. Yes. Because I knew my power. Like I knew that I would receive it in a way that I would actually achieve something and it would stick. And so I love telling that story because of that.
I'm so excited about that. That's amazing. Because that's the thing. Like I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with affirmations, right? Like that's why I said I used to hate affirmations. So it's really about like what the intention of the affirmation, right? Like how personalized is this affirmation? Because if it's personalized, like I get the ones on the freaking phone because honestly, they make me happy and that's fine. And I like that, but I don't really identify with those because they're not necessarily for me, right? Like all the time. Like they, but I like to look at them. It brings me a smile to my face. Cool. That's the purpose that they serve for me. Right. But when I work with affirmations, I'm like, you guys have to intend, and I don't even call them affirmations. I call them mantras. Because I would rather do that. But I'm like, if you are making this for you, like what works for you? And I think if it works for you, then it's going to have the most impact and the most motivation and momentum that you can have, right? That's why I have a love-hate relationship with them. But I also, we'll go back to the let them thing. I completely agree with you. Like I am 100% on board because I used to not like her, and then I went back on board with her, and then I didn't like her again, and now I'm kind of like I don't know. But that's the whole reason why I think my friend was like, you're like the second part because like the whole coming back to yourself, you have to be in here before you can do that let them theory, right? So, and it's or the first part or the second part, I don't know, but like but I love the beauty of the theory. I love the idea, right? Yeah. And I love the concept. And I was reading her book and I was like, I know she's been through some shit. Like she's been through some shit. So she understands the concepts of it, right? But I'm with you in this because like I will say like we can make this controversial. I have the same freaking problem because of Tony Robbins. Like I am not a Tony Robbins fan for the same reason, right? And do I think that he's a great businessman? Absolutely. Nobody can like slight that because he's obviously successful. However, like I have the same problem with like the Tony Robbins events. I'm like, how much does that sustain you? Because you're going to come off of that 4-day and then you're going to crash. And I've had clients of my own go to like his Date with Destiny or his like, whatever the other one is where you walk on fire. I can't remember. But like the ones, like I just know you walk on fire. So I'm like, you know what those are. I've never gone clearly. So I'm just like, but you have the high, right? It's the endorphin high of the event, which we experience in any kind of group setting, right? Like I had it in my retreat. Everybody was on a high, everything, you know. But the thing is like, that's why I made it my mission on my retreat to give them actual tools to take home. So they're not just sitting here like, I am amazing. And then you go home and you crash. And so when you have a 15,000 person audience, you are not making lasting changes and you're feeding them a lie that if they go to this thing, that their entire life is going to change. And that's what I hate about it. And it's not sustainable. And then, yes, you can feed them into your coaching program, which is what he does. And yes, there are some amazing coaches in there because I actually have a friend who is a Tony Robbins coach and she's a phenomenal coach. Like she's like hands down amazing. Like I've watched her coach people live. Like she's very good at what she does. But that's another thing that hurts my heart is that they're not getting the credit. He is. He's getting all the credit for the transformational experience that they're providing. And that's why I tell people like every time I come on my show, I'm like, guys, you got to find the person that's going to be the person for you. Because like you said, we all kind of sometimes do similar things, but it's that different magnetism. And it's like, don't think that you're going to get this massive transformational experience from going to like a 4-day event. Right. You can start to open the door. You can totally open the door. You can like peek in there. You can start rooting around in there and all this stuff. Yeah. But you're never going to solve it overnight. And that's something that, no book is going to do for you. No event is going to do for you. It's people actually like sitting in front of somebody doing something for another person. And that's why I do one-to-one coaching still. And I also have started my women's group because of what I kept hearing from my women clients is like, I want a space to connect in a community. And I was like, I love that. Like, let's do that. Let's create that. Like I can create that. And so that's what and it feels freaking good. But 2-3 years ago, I was asked to do the same thing and it didn't feel good. I didn't want to do it. So but I don't think I was ready yet to do it. And now I'm in that space where I want to. And it's called Shift Happens, which I love the pun. But anyway, but that's what I say because it is both things happen. But it's just that thing, like whatever works for you. You can have sustainable change in a small group setting. Like people feed off of each other, they learn from each other, they grow with each other, they feel almost more supported because they're not the only person going through the same stuff. But also if you're going through that deep nasty stuff, sometimes that one-to-one coach is going to be the thing that like really unlocks you, and then maybe you can do a group or an event or whatever. But I think that it's always about working on yourself and realizing that there's no end to the onion. Like you're just going to keep going layer after layer until you're gone. And and I don't say it as a negative thing. I say that as we're always learning and we're always looking for opportunities to grow. And that's how I feel.
Well, like we really have to get it out of our minds that because we're so used to, first of all, we get on Google, we get an answer, done, right? Instant gratification. We sign up for a class, the class finishes. We do all these things. Maybe like we put in a resume for a job, we either get it or we don't. There are results all the time. Yes. But personal growth and development and evolution of who you are as a person, evolution of our life is never stopping. It's always changing. And that's where we end up getting lost and stuck because we put the brakes on when life keeps evolving. And here we are living as a 20-year-old, even though we're 45, and we're wondering why our relationships aren't working out. It's because your mindset as a 20-year-old is not going to get you where you want to be as a 45-year-old. And, we have to get out of our minds that we've arrived, that we've made it. We're always on that journey constantly. Sometimes you're going to be working harder on it than other times. Sometimes you might just like do some smooth sailing because you just had a really intensive experience. That's cool. Never stop because that's when everything gets stuck within ourselves. And I don't know, I just can't say it enough, and I know you can't either, that never stop being curious about who you can continue becoming.
Yeah, just keep peeling back the layers. And
Yep.
I use doors also as an I'm a very visual coach. So I'm like doors, onion, whatever works for you.
Right.
But also I think too, you hit the nail on the head, is that society teaches us that there's like an end to all things, or also that there's an instant gratification to all things. And the more that you think that like, okay, when am I going to get there? When am I going to get there with my own personal development journey? The further and further the goalpost gets pushed, because it's not designed to ever be completed until you no longer exist.
Right.
I work with a shaman who says the same thing. She goes, I will never put myself in a master position because I'm always going to be learning. So I'm always going to be in the student position because I have a lot to learn about my life.
Yeah.
And I'm never, she's like, unless I'm like, she always says like, unless I turn into Gandhi and become like all knowing, like, I'm like, she's like, but I mean, even then I know that, I mean, he meditated till the day he died because he still didn't understand everything he wanted to understand about himself. And I think that people as a whole are the most complex, like honestly, just amazing things that exist on the planet, because we're all different. We all come from different backgrounds and different things. We may have similar situations that have happened to us, but all of them have been interpreted or processed or perceived in different ways, because my trauma or my loss or my grief or my anger or whatever is going to manifest differently than somebody else's. And I just think it's such a cool thing to see. And instead of meeting it with, you know, like you said, judgment, because we're people, we're always going to judge a little bit, but just to pause. And I teach this to people all the time, like just to pause, like just hit the pause button for 2 seconds and go like, why am I trying to judge here? Like what's going on? And just go like, okay, maybe let me look at this through a different lens. And just to see somebody a little differently and understand them a little differently, because maybe they're being rude because they haven't learned something yet. Maybe they are being defensive because they have reason to be. Like they're guarded because they've been hurt. And instead of seeing the person as like, you know, the bitch or the asshole, it's like, look at them as, okay, well, they're still a human being and they live a human existence just like the rest of us. And just because I perceived my trauma and interpreted it in a different way that made me feel small, like exactly what you said, I was like, I was definitely small in mine. And that made me quiet and introverted, which I've clearly pushed through. But that's how I coped, right? Versus somebody else who's going to put the arm up and create the wall. And there's nothing wrong with however you deal with that when you're surviving. But you have to show up in a way that's like understanding. And, you know, it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice to not instantly switch on that, like, ooh, like what is that person's problem? It's more of like I wonder what they're going through, like asking that question versus the other way around.
The other way around.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like, you know, we learned this in our childhood, that I heard this, I think his last name is Gabor, Dr. Gabor. Have you ever heard him?
Is it Dr. Gabor Mate?
Yes,
yes.
He talks really, you know, like this, and just, you know, he says, but he's like super powerful in what he says, even though he's like super monotone. But
I have to do small doses.
I was listening to a video that he had the other day, just a clip, and he said, I don't care how many siblings you had, none of you were raised the same. You don't have the same parents. Mm-hmm. He's like, yes, you were born from the same two people. You were conceived from the same two people. But if your sibling is 5 years older than you and maybe they're a different gender, well, they're going to get totally different parenting, and that parent is a different person at that time. Mm-hmm. So it's like every time a new child comes out, they're starting their childhood with a different parent than the sibling before, the sibling after. And I really thought about that, and I thought, oh my God, but yet here we are. We tell stories. Oh, we were raised in this household, like everybody tells the same story. Then you might have one sibling that's like, no, we weren't. I disagree with you. And it's because we all are different. All of our judgments are different. All of the way that we live are different, even though we were raised in the same damn house, sat down for the same dinner every single night. We walked to school together, like all the things, right? Went out and played soccer in the street with the same kids. Everybody's story is different, yet we don't tell it that way. And so to almost like, just like open our eyes to that and go, wait a minute, like there is such a complex, beautiful amount of difference out there that if I were to just open myself up to it and accept it for just a minute, I think I in my own self and in my own life is going to feel so much better. But
Oh yeah.
Just a really interesting story that I heard that was like, yep, that's true.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And I think that, really seeing, it's like the stereotypes of the siblings, right? Like the firstborn, middle child, youngest. Those are not stereotypes. Those are actual things, because
Right.
you're right. Like, because we all grow and evolve constantly. Like, I'm not the same person I was at 15 years old. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Oh my God. But you know what I mean? But I'm not the same person I was at 31. I'm 41, I'm like, I'm a wholly different person. And it's because I continue to explore that world. And even when you don't, you still are changing, because you're learning things, whether you like it or not. Like, you're experiencing life, whether you like it or not. And I think too, it's, what popped into my head and then I kind of lost it. This is how my brain works. But I just think it's just a beautiful thing to just sort of just take a pause. And that's what I've been working on myself a lot in the last 2 years. Just kind of just taking a pause and going like, what is wrong with that person, or where did they come from, or what's going on? It's kind of like, what are they going through right now that is, making them feel like they have to present themselves this way. And when I've paused and I have that, I have my clients do the same thing, because a lot of the times there's a lot of external blame coming in defensiveness, right? And this is a judgment-free zone right now. Like, seriously, if you guys feel like you're doing this, it's fine, because I did it too. But we turn to the external, especially when we're people pleasers, and we want to like kind of make it make sense, right? And it's like, well, they didn't appreciate me, or we didn't really appreciate ourselves. Like that was really what was going on, right? But like, we turned to the external judgment. So I asked them, I'm like, guys, like, pause for a second. It's not about making excuses, and it's not about like giving them a reason to act that way. It's more about like giving the person the benefit of the doubt to understand, like, maybe they're just not having a good day, or maybe, especially if you don't know this person, if you've never met this person, like, they just could be going through something that you just know nothing about. And that's why I like that sweatshirt that was going around, or t-shirt. It says like, everybody's fighting a battle that you know nothing about. It's like, really just being aware of those things, and being aware of those situations in your life that, like, you and your, floor mate, maybe from like your guys are working on the same floor in a business building, and you have the same title, and you graduated from the same university maybe, and you went through the same situations. You guys are not the same person, so like but we try to find those commonalities. And I feel like that's why we sometimes link ourselves as like, we're like the same person. Like, I've heard people say that all the time. And then when that proves to be false, that's when all of the stuff tends to, kind of crumble around them. But it's like, start to see the person for who they really are, and not who you think they should be based off of what you went through. Right. That could be similar. And I think that that's where we can actually start to become more of a unified society, instead of people being put in boxes all the time,
Yeah, exactly. And that starts with not putting ourselves in that box, right?
Yeah.
So like you talked about, always considering what somebody else might be going through instead of creating that judgment. And something that I work with my clients on, I love that we're a little bit different in this, although I'm sure you do this as well. But I ask them to reflect on themselves. Like, you will never know what that person is feeling and thinking. Even if they tell you, you're still not going to get the whole story. So why are you spending so much time trying to figure out why they feel what they're feeling and why they're doing what they're doing? Why don't you just ask yourself, why is it bothering me so much? Why am I so bothered? What feeling is coming up for me right now that is relating to this situation? Oh, that person looks like somebody that really pissed me off 10 years ago. It has nothing to do with what they say at all, right? But when we question ourselves to find out where are these stories in our mind coming from right now? Because we're setting a stage for something that doesn't even exist. And, like, I have somebody in my family that I was constantly having to apologize to for stories that were being told in their mind. I'm like, I'm not apologizing. I didn't do any of those things.
Yeah.
But that's where, it takes humility first. But it just takes realizing that it's not about blame. Like, I'm not going to blame myself or punish myself for answering these questions honestly. I really want to know, why am I so bothered about what is happening right now? Like, let me check in with myself, because really this world is about me, myself, and I before it is about anything else. And if I can't get myself in check, nothing else is ever going to be in check.
I agree with that. I saw a quote today that said, and I 100% agree with it, and I do that too. Like, but I go like, okay, first of all, pause.
Right.
Do this.
PAWS.
And then
PAWS.
Go. Yeah, PAWS. Pause. And then go like, yeah, why, but why is it bothering you? I totally get that. But I saw this quote today. It says, just be responsible. This is actually from Mel Robbins. So this is funny that it's coming back.
This is the love side.
But this is the love side. But she said, just be responsible for the truth that you need to tell and not how it's actually being received.
Right.
Because I completely agree with that. And the reason why I tell them to pause first is because when you're trying to come out aggressively to that person, that's what it becomes external. And when they start, and that's when the fabrication starts to happen. So I go like, just pause for a second and consider they might just not be in a good space. You don't have to figure out what that space is, but you just can acknowledge that they might not be in a good space. Right. But then kind of reverse that and just be like, why are you so pissed off? Because I actually had that question with my husband last night. We were watching a TV show and it was a reality TV show and he was getting all mad about like this one of the players. And I was like, why are you so angry? Like, why is this bothering you so much? And he was just like, I don't know. They just pissed me off. I'm like, well, you need to pause. That's what I told him.
Yeah, that's right.
Pause. And you need to see it but those are questions that I like to ask because I feel like they need to understand both sides of it. And they need to show grace and understanding on that side, because if that is a person, like if that's like a spouse or a family member and they're coming at you aggressively, you can pause and be like, okay, well, you know what? This is not about me. Like that's what something they're living a whole other existence saying they might have a crappy day that I know nothing about and I have done nothing wrong. So that's on them. So, but why am I taking this defensively? Like, why am I all of a sudden going over here? Right. So, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to clarify that because I realized like that did not come out right. But yeah, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you because we cannot take responsibility because we can't for other people's reactions or responses or emotions because we have zero control over those. And when we actually finally grasp that, whew, that's amazing.
That's like, that freedom again. Freedom.
Yeah. Yep. Free bird. That's what we want to do. Actually, that's my logo. My logo is a phoenix with its wings out like that. So that's kind of funny that I just did that. But
my logo is an owl. So clearly we have the bird.
We're just supposed to hang out, Christine.
Commonalities. Good things.
We're just hanging out on podcasts all day long. It'd be great. No, but I absolutely loved having you. And we'll make sure that what is your podcast? What is your podcast? Tell me the things so that they know
sure.
where to find
it's
you.
Called, yeah, sure. It's called Unconscious Evolution. And I interview people, just kind of like wide open conversations like you have here on your show. There is not a set number of questions. We just let the conversation flow, but I let them tell their story. It's almost like, what did you learn that you didn't realize was unfolding in your life? There's always a story in that. And I love the depth that I can get into with them and ask them the questions. And I let them know, I'm like, listen, this is not a show where I want you to come on and sell your business. That's not what I'm interested in. Like, I want to get to the heart of it. Like, let's talk like regular people. Let's pretend we're on Oprah together right now. It's like, you have to tell people that, especially if you've connected on LinkedIn, which is where I've connected with a lot of people. I'm like, nope. And I even have like a precursor in the information that I send out. And I say, if we don't stick to the scope of the show during the recording, I reserve the right to not air it. And it's true. It's like, but anyway, I get some really powerful stories from cancer diagnosis to losing parents, parents learning that their child has cancer, just personal struggles, alcoholism. I mean, the whole thing. It's like I get deep and I want people to tell their stories because it's not pretty all the time. And then maybe when it is pretty, it gets unpretty again because that's just the way life is. And it's that part that is constantly evolving, right? Like we just always are. So anyway, I drop a new episode every other Wednesday, and I just dropped episode 15 of season 1, and I'm taking 2 months off, just a little break because I have a puppy at home and, need some time.
That's so cute. I love that puppy.
Thank you. But I'm on YouTube and all the major podcast channels can be listened to. So Unconscious Evolution. Thank you so much for asking.
No problem. I'm here to, I like always say, I'm not here to really push business minded stuff, but at the same time, I'm not going to take away from that, because the thing is that somebody listening to you could totally benefit from what you have to say. And or working with you. And I feel like bringing those opportunities, like my mission is to make, I would say unconventional practices conventional, right? Like we're still seen as like sort of out of the box thinkers. We're still seen as not necessarily the mainstream source of getting help in a lot of ways. Or we seem, sometimes we're seen as more taboo or a little out there. But I'm like, there's so many different facets to finding help and education, and I want people to share, like like you did at the beginning. Like I felt freedom because I went through this, but at the same time I'm like, I want you to highlight your expertise, and I want you to see your brain, because it's like, this is like the way that we all think. Like you said at the beginning, we're all in this world together, but we all do it so differently and deliver it in a lot of different ways. And I just think it's just such a cool thing to do. So we will link your stuff in the description on YouTube. So if you guys are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, then make sure you still follow us on the YouTube channel, The Unspoken Truth. And I just really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. So it was great to meet you and have you on.
Oh, it was really awesome. I feel super energetic, and you're my last call for today. I love it. So awesome. And thank you so much. It's great to meet you.
Likewise. Have a great day, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.